and just be around a bunch of people, and everybody would ask, how's that child doing? And she had to be confronted day in and day out. But I'll tell you one, I didn't agree with everything she said for her. But I'll tell you one thing, she had sacrifice, and she had commitment, and she was willing to do what it took to get her kids to church, even if it was painful. Folks, there's such a sense we need separation. We have too much in our Christian world today of the purpose-driven life. Oh, it's all about you. The focus is on you and the life God has for you. Oh, we have too much interest in your best life now instead of living sacrificially. I wrote an article on my blog this week, and I said, it's not about yes, we can. It's about yes, He will. This is not about you. You shouldn't be voting because of what you get. You shouldn't be voting about what's best for you. You should be seeking God and saying what's best for this country. What's best for God Almighty. What will best raise His standard. And whatever you vote, that's your decision. But you shouldn't be focusing on you. You see, when you begin to focus on you, you've missed the point. When you begin to focus on you, you do hold the money in your pocketbook because you say, well, it's better for me to keep it right now. Things are a little tight. But when you get to a place of sacrifice, that's what I'm talking to you about today. Oh, folks, I remember the days of the church. Oh, we had some messed up stuff too. Oh, we did. But we also had sacrifice. We had commitment. I remember Tanya coming down and kneeling in an altar of prayer, praying through and gloriously. This is when her and Daniel weren't even together. They had broken up at that point. Do you remember that, Daniel? They had broken up, you'd broken up, and then you broke up because you were going to press on with God. You were going to do the right thing, and it didn't matter what. And then Tanya came on board and said, I'm going to pray through and get right with God, and I don't care if I get back with Him or not. I'm not doing it to get Him, I'm doing it to get God. Now look what she's got. She has 2 Daniels. Our pastor, so many of you don't know the sacrifices that he made. You don't know the sacrifices our pastor made. He was a young man. Before he got the call to preach, he was on his way. He owned, I don't know how many homes he owed. He was buying homes, fixing them up and flipping them. He wasn't even 21 years old yet. I don't want to tell you when he could walk into a bank and command with all of his lines of credit. He was on his way to starting his own mortgage company at the age of 20. Let that sink in for a moment. 20. Let me tell you something. He felt the call to preach. He gave it up. He gave it up. He gave it up because God would rather have had a sacrifice of Him being obedient. And some of you in this church today are here today because He gave up being a millionaire before he was 25 and decided to go into the ministry. Kurt, do you remember how many hours he spent with you that first year? How many hours did he spend with you a week? Oh, he was with you. You know what? He believed in you more than anybody believed in you. He wouldn't give up on you. He was tenacious for you. He didn't just pray for you in the solitude of his home. He went and got you. Folks, there's something about sacrifice. There's something about commitment. I remember the Hills and us when we got together. We decided we were going to step out. And we didn't know what we were doing. But we had one thing we had desire. I remember Kathy Hill teaching Sunday school in the back storage room of the karate studio. And she had a little bit of area where it didn't even have a chair back there. They were on the floor. And that's what we had. And that's what she worked with. I remember when we finally got a Sunday school room for her, she thought that she thought she was walking in a megachurch. She had a chair she could sit in and teach the kids Sunday school. But she taught Sunday school for those first 3 months from Labor Day to Christmas. We met in a karate studio. Then we decided to go big time. We decided to move to the movie theater. And we met at Pembroke Mall up here at the theater. That's where we met. And every Sunday we had an open truck. No, it was just an open bed truck. And we would take, some of you have heard these stories, but it's good to remember them. Some of you haven't heard them. We had all of our musical equipment, all of that stuff we had to pack up every Sunday and move into Pembroke Mall, load it in, have church, and move back out. And I remember one Sunday, Bill was teaching Sunday school, and the people that worked at the theater would come in the back door, apparently, where we were at, and they would come in and interrupt Bill, and I'm sitting there going, dear God, this is no good. This is no good. We got to move. People keep interrupting our service, and they start blaring music in the middle of the thing, and we couldn't hear. But you know, we met that year in the year 2001, from January until the second weekend in May. Every Sunday, we would pack up all of our music equipment in a flatbed truck and move it into that mall, and then we'd move it back in storage into Gary's garage close by to where they lived then. If it had ever rained, our equipment would have been destroyed. We didn't have money to replace it. You can check the almanacs. You can check the weather. It didn't rain on a Sunday morning from January of 2000 until the second weekend in May of 2000. And why is that significant? Because in the second weekend of May of 2000, we were actually in a building of our own. The very first Sunday that we didn't have to move equipment, it was a downpour. Now, you might not find that to be very significant, but I find it to be of great significance that it never rained the whole time that we destroyed our music department. Our music department was in the back of a truck. But the first Sunday, we didn't need it not to rain. It was a downpour. God was sending us a message. He said, I've seen your sacrifice. I've seen your commitment. That is the sacrifice and the commitment, folks, that I'm calling us as a church to get back to. This morning, I want to give you 4 points. I'm not going to finish them. I'll try and get through at least 2. Point number 1 is the reason for separation. Let's go back to verses 15 and 16. I could reminisce, but you see, within the reminiscing, there's a message within the reminiscing. Yeah. Listen to the message within the reminiscing. The message of the reminiscing was, every one of us in those early days, we sacrificed. We sacrificed. And we did it without thinking about it. We just sacrificed. Point 1, the reason for separation. I'm so glad that God in His tender mercy knew that we probably needed to be convinced before He told us to do something. The second point is the duty of separation. He could have started off just by telling us what we need to do. He says, no, I'm going to start off with giving you the reason. And then after you got the reason, then I'll give you the duty. What agreement does Christ have with Belial? Belial represents evil, wickedness, represents Satan. Or what does a believer have in common with an unbeliever? And what agreement does God's sanctuary have with idols? Well, let's look at some of this. God in His incredible mercy, approaching the subject could have just began with the duty, but no, He didn't. But you see, that's the passage in the New Testament. But see, the people that read that would have been aware of some Old Testament passages that dealt with this exact issue. Deuteronomy 22:10 says, do not plow with an ox and a donkey together. Now, why is that important? I'm talking about the reason for separation. Deuteronomy 22:10 says, don't plow with an ox and a donkey together. An ox and a donkey, being of different species and of very different characters, cannot associate comfortably, nor unite cheerfully in drawing a plow or a wagon. The donkey is much smaller, and his step is shorter, and there would be an unequal and irregular steps. You couldn't put the two of them together because they couldn't pull it together right because their steps were different. Also, the donkey ate coarse and poisonous weeds and had what they call fetid breath. I had to look up what the word fetid meant. Think of it as, ever talk to somebody with an extreme taste of halitosis? They had that nasty breath. Halitosis. Well, donkey's got some extreme bad halitosis. And said it's so bad that if the donkey it was together with the ox, what would happen is it would become so poisonous and offensive that the other animal would have to turn its head away and only pull with its shoulder. You got the point? If you're going to pull and lock horns up with someone that's an unbeliever, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Let me keep going. Then we look at verse 11 in Deuteronomy 22. Listen to this one. Don't wear clothes made of both wool and linen. Oh, what in the world has that got to do with anything? Could we be serious? Not wearing clothes with wool? But listen to this. The law, it is to be observed, did not prohibit the Israelites from wearing many different types of cloths together, but only the two, wool and linen. Verse 11. Now, The observations and researches of modern science have proved that wool, when it's combined with linen, increases its power of passing off the electricity from the body, and in hot climates would bring